Is what's happening in Moscow real, or is it all publicity? So, cheers, boys and girls. Churches and ministries in Moscow have had a very strong effect on the evangelical theological and cultural scene, particularly with Pastor Douglas Wilson's stuff on family, and an enormous effect also in the world of Christian education, Christian classical education, the homeschooling movement, classical schools, etc. We've only lived here for 4 years ourselves, but it's actually our second time through. When my wife and I were yet young, we actually came through town and I attended New St. Andrews for a little while. I was only a few years old at that point, 7 or 8 years old. 7 or 8 years removed from being a meeting in someone's living room and calling yourself a college. And it was a very formative time in our lives. In fact, we stayed as a part of the Communion of Reformed Evangelical Churches after that. Because, there are hundreds of CREC churches around the country. And our eldest daughter was born out here. And now our eldest daughter is at New St. Andrews. And the reason I'm mentioning this is there are many institutions that have come out of this work. So you don't simply have a couple of authors or a media company, a publishing house, being Canon Press in this case, that have a really out of proportion influence. Stuff is being built, stuff is being constructed, ministries founded, institutions formed, etc. And then people also start to talk about the life of the church here, and they see cultural engagement and cultural activity. COVID rolls around and they see members of our church getting arrested, and those arrests being retweeted by the President of the United States. Maybe they see things in the educational world like the amazing work of Jubilee with special needs students. Or maybe they see things in the media world like Fight, Laugh, Feast, and etc., and etc., and etc. So rumor starts to build. Finally, we get to the question. A friend of mine was asked last week about Moscow. And what he was asked, the way my friend passed it to me, right? So I don't know that I'm quoting exactly, but I thought it was a really interesting way to look at it, and an interesting question. What he was asked was, is what's happening in Moscow real, or is it all publicity? And I thought, wow, particularly after all the Moscow mood stuff, right? Where people are reacting, evangelicals and Reformed evangelicals in a milquetoasty way are sort of reacting to a publishing house that sets things on fire. And, one of the videos I made about that kind of addressed that. That a lot of what people are interacting with, what they call the Moscow mood, is the canon mood. It's not even the Douglas Wilson or Christchurch mood. I mean, it is very much like the Douglas Wilson mood is a big part of it. But trust me when I tell you, it's those loons down at Canon Press, buy my book from them, that are the ones having the idea to set things on fire, etc., etc. Right? And people get the app and blah, blah, blah. But next thing you know, you start to realize, well, something kind of stunty here. Is this real or is it fake? Well, it's real, but probably not real in the way you imagine. And I thought, it would be helpful for many to to talk about it. So I think a lot of people really do have the Canon Press Moscow in their heads. And it's not a picture that Canon is trying to paint. But while they're busy making their paintings, I think it's very easy for us to form an idea of big, bearded, loud guys setting things on fire. And there are plenty of big, bearded, loud guys setting things on fire here. But of course, human life up close is always more complicated. And there are also lots of short, clean-shaven, quiet guys here. And also many other combinations of the same thing. Not to speak of the women and children. There are lots of different educational efforts and sports efforts and blah, 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 right? And I know you know these things in your head, but it's very easy to create this image of everyone walking around kicking butt in the name of building Christ's kingdom. Adjacent to that idea is the idea that Christians arriving here maybe feel a really strong sense of mission, of purpose. And it's hard to believe, after as long as you've been adrift, that could be so. Right? And you imagine, that here everyone kind of knows what they're about and what their job is within their own church and within the kingdom. And okay, I know that life close to the ground is always more complicated than it is from a satellite, from whatever distance you're looking at things, whether it's Iowa, which people confuse with Idaho all the time, or Ohio, or France, or Brazil, or Mexico, or wherever. All of these things finally combine to form, I think, an idea of communion that is so sweet and unified, and exactly what you've been lacking where you are. So I'm going to unpack a lot of that, but first start by answering the question directly. Is it real? Yes, it is. It's not just publicity. It's not a puff of smoke and some laser lights. What is happening here is very real and has been real for a long time. Like I said, we were here 20 years ago. And I've done videos talking about how much the community has grown. I mean, and I'll touch on some of that now as I continue making this video for you guys. I was thinking of saving this point for later, but I'm going to make it now because we're already well into the video. And anyway, I have a habit of just presuming that you're going to be around until the end and build up toward a thing. I did 18 minutes of a video kind of building up to a point, and I did this on purpose. And then in the last 2 minutes, just knocking it all down. It's a lot of fun. But also, this is YouTube. So I should probably get around sooner than that to saying the thing I want to say. The thing I want to say is... if you're a big follower of the goings-on in Moscow, you've already heard this from people here, which is, be slow to pack up your bags and move here for many reasons, get a job, etc. But also, and this is the most important one, do things where you are. And it's really important. This is not telling you to stay and do things where you are right now, and this is the only way to be. We're 60 years into having schools being planned and built out and etc. And you need to suck it up and start where you are, even though your kid's 5 and it's your kid that you're concerned about. But I want you to consider that attitude of doing things where you are. The stuff that makes it real here is all the Christians doing things where they are and doing things on their own. So that's an important thing for you guys to consider. Okay? Christians supporting each other, but doing things. I want to focus on the community. And I don't mean community like, oh, well, the Christ Church community or the CREC community or the community of Moscow. I mean the sense of community. I mean communion. I mean living life together. What is it that seeker-friendly churches used to say? Doing life. Right? I want to talk about how we do life together. One of the things I talk about in another video that seemed to connect some people and risks offending any new friends I've made here in town is that it was hilarious for my wife and I to watch people from northern Idaho, from our perspective as Southerners, as Floridians, yes, Southerners, tough it out, Alabama, watching North Idahoans trying to learn to be hospitable. And it really did feel like, wow, like this is like, they don't get it yet, they have to learn it. And then coming back through town a few times saying, wow, like these, these Christians are really being sanctified and really learning these things. So that's amazing. Right. But, you know, it can be a big shock to move here for a lot of people. And then a year goes by, 2 years go by, and they haven't made any friends. Right. Or life is, you know, not the bed of like-minded roses that they thought it would be, because Christians are living life and bumping heads and bumping into each other and not always saying, excuse me, right? These are real churches with real people in them. And not, you know, it's not a sin against you every time someone steps on your toes, although it often is. And so, you know, like, that's just stuff that has to be worked. It's like, I had to deal with this back in wherever I was from. Gasp. I have to deal with it here. So it can be legitimately difficult to connect. And, you know, the elders of the various churches I know are really on top of trying to help with that, etc. And so many amazing saints. And, you know, you should talk to me and to other people about how you can get hooked up with people. The rugby club is a huge thing for us. I was visiting another CREC church, Trinity, here in town a few weeks ago, and for a Christmas service. And like 4 or 5 young men in a row got up to do scripture reading. That I realized I coached those guys. And I just felt this surge of love and affection, not only for these young men, but for their church too. And it's, you know, it's not my church. But they were in the rugby club, and that was awesome. So there's lots of stuff like that. Talk to people and get connected with things like that. But anyway, the point I wanted to make, and I guess maybe I started to make that because of this rugby club tangent. As much as you might have the caveats of, hey, listen, it's not, you can't just walk in and suddenly everyone's your friend and everyone loves you and you feel all this communion and every baby shower is sweet, and, you know, when you have the flu, people make you meals. Like, you know, it's just automatic and it was so easy and seamless. No, it's not always like that. All the caveats in the world. And you've probably heard all the caveats if you're actually thinking about moving here, or, you know, kind of go down Moscow rabbit dens, rabbit holes. Man, this is what happens. If I start doing things in Portuguese, my English starts to implode. And then just before this, I was doing some stuff. Anyway. So, all these caveats can be made, but there really is a sense of, it's not the pie in the sky community that you may struggle not to let, you know, your imagination fly away with. But there really truly is a bond and a like-mindedness and a sense of community and being in the fight together. And like, that's with lots of difference. I have friends who are like, yay for this or that institution or business, and others who are like, yay for this or that institution or business, yay for this or that activity that's identified with kirkers, and others who are like, yeah, for that, you know, activity, or, but it doesn't matter. Like, they all are in these battle lines together. I myself, I think I probably have a bit of a reputation as someone who just got to give his opinion. I mean, he has a YouTube channel, for goodness sake. And I think I'm trusted to be there in the fight. But I think you see a lot of that. Like, people are making their own things and building their own things and making it happen. Businesses, sporting things. Like, I recently started helping coach. I was only able to do it for a couple months, so I'll be done soon because I got to get back to rugby. But coaching a little girls volleyball. Great. Fantastic. Some people started a club. Girls volleyball. Boom. Make it happen. There's just a lot of that. And so it's not that people are all rowing the one ship in one direction, but everyone is definitely fighting the same local battle. And if you had been at Salamis and seen the Persians and their ships go up in flames, then you would know, as I do, that you have a whole lot of ships going in a whole lot of different directions, making a lot of different decisions. One says ramming speed, the other says hard to starboard, and the other says board 'em, boys. And those are all the right decision in different directions in different times and places, all for that local fight. And that's what we have here. So there is a true sense of community and camaraderie in that sense, in the sense of, yeah, we're in this together, but we're not all doing the same thing. It's not that sort of community. And I think men in particular, they really want that shoulder to shoulder thing. Moscow is full of shoulder to shoulder, but it's not every shoulder facing in the same direction. And I think a lot of women in particular, they want that one hearth we're all protecting, and that one hearth where everyone is nurtured. There are lots of different hearths, and people are nurtured even in different ways. I could look at a teenager and the way they're dressed and give you a good guess as to what church they go to. I'm just saying. I think that's a really much more satisfying and long-term tenable sort of communion and feeling of unity than anything that could be created by having a very small, tight ship with everyone rowing in that same direction. We're more agile. Why would we make ourselves into some monolith to face the monolithic enemy? Anyway, I'm still going to start getting philosophical. So let's not do that. So many things get started here. And I guarantee you that there are a bunch of awesome things that are meeting success on their own that have started here that you're not aware of yet. Or that are, in a field like, I'm a language teacher. I know of a couple of language teaching efforts that started right here, are fantastic and even national in scale. And why would someone who's into the whole thing happening in Moscow know about that? But there they are, and they're awesome. But people start things. So many people just start things here. Why do you think people start things? Because they think there's a lack, or they think they could do better, right? And just, people are just out there hitting it. That's what creates the unity. So is what's going on in Moscow real? Or, is it a lot of flashy publicity? Even New St. Andrews ads, those put out by Canon. There you go. They're, wow, pacha! Yeah, I mean, that pacha is happening. So is everything else at every level, and it's awesome. So, yeah, I mean, New St. Andrews, I think, is the best university, best college. It's just a college. Best college in the country. Other things are emerging in Moscow and elsewhere with Christians, really, when it comes to post-high school education, comes to college. Logos really is great. Fight, Laugh, Feast really is great. Canon really is great. Roman Roads really is great. Jubilee really is great. Kepler really is great. And I could keep going. I almost started keeping going. I'm not going to keep going. So many amazing institutions. The rugby club is great. The volleyball club is great. That baseball club they tried to start, that was great for a little while. I hope it picks back up. All the official Bible studies are great. All the unofficial Bible studies, which the elders I know encourage, are great. All the official art events, the music competition, the poetry stuff, they're great. So's the local Christian arts magazine. So are all the unofficial things. The arts group that one of my children just joined recently, etc., etc. The women's groups are great. All the book clubs that, hey, the one every single person in the church knows about because they send an email out every week, and the one that only the 8 women who go to it know about. It's all out there. And that proliferation, that variety is all busy working, busy building, and ends up creating, a real thing. And a real thing that somehow has amazing unity. I think we know what that somehow is. Study your pneumatology. Hope you found this video helpful. The peace of Christ be upon you.
What day is it today? Remind me.
It's Sunday, Mr. Pinch.
Sunday. And what do we do on a Sunday morning, wherever we happen to be? We go to church, you bloody heathen!